Okay now, how are you doing? This is Dr. Samurai. Today's my thug profile. Number 6 is B.T.K. Dennis Rader. I like to use the word thug because I am uncomfortable despising these people that I contacted with for such a long time. So please understand this is my way of showing respect for those honestly have been contacting with. Okay, so today's thug is Mr. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader is probably one of the most famous serial killers alive today in the United States. He sent a letter calling himself B.T.K. Bind, torture, and kill. Okay? He himself named himself. Between 1974 till 1991, during those 17-year period, he, literally put the town of Kansas under great fear. He controlled Kansas during those 17 years, long time. It's like he was controlling it from behind the whole town. Anyway, why the name BTK became so famous? I think Dennis was born as the first son of 4 children, and he had both mom and dad. He was obsessed with the sadistic, image of torturing and killing women. Even when he was a little kid, he had this fantasy, is very important word. He had this fantasy of keeping asphyxiation and masturbate wearing women's underwears and stuff. So he was psychologically a little bit distorted already when he was little. I kind of read an article that said he kind of binded his penis with the handle of desk drawer or whatever. I think that's a true information. But anyway, he was into those sadistic and masochistic things. And he masturbated, in a asphyxiated situation. I'm sorry about my English. He was at the time working for a security company, and he installed a security system. He also did work of surveying the town. That was a good, good job to meet with people. And when he found his ideal target, he stalked her and he peeped her house, and he went back home and made up this perfect plan, and he actually put it into practice. He binded the victim with the string, actually strangulated the victim, and he enjoyed each one of those steps. This is the important point. He enjoyed stalking. He enjoyed peeping. He enjoyed making a perfect plan. And he actually enjoyed acting out his fantasy. Enjoyed each one of the steps. He one time even killed the family of 4. This kind of thing we normally cannot understand. To kill the whole family. But I'm not an amateur, okay? I think he might have some anger against happy looking family, which he wanted to have, but he couldn't because of his mother, right? This is the general information, the part 1, I usually call it. From now on, I would like to move on to part 2 of Mr. Dennis that I know. It's a famous story that he used to call why he wanted to kill people Factor X, because he himself did not know why he was into. He still is into that. Because he couldn't understand why even he called it Factor X. But as I have been researching this field, there's no act that happens without cause. The cause was, to be honest with you, his mother. His mother was the kind of type always looking at the next neighbor's yard, so to speak. He was always looking at something exciting outside of the house. He was not interested in his kids, to put it clear. That's the word Mr. Dennis said. He was not interested in us. But one time, there was this incident that his mother, who was usually, off and away from her kids, called Dennis. And her arms in between those sofa, the upright part and the horizontal part. There's this space, right? And she put her hand in between that and said, "Hey, Dennis, I couldn't pull my hand out because my ring was stuck with one of the springs or whatever." It could have been true, or it could have been just acting. But to Dennis, it was exciting. Mom, who never looked toward kids, including him. He even said Mom didn't like me. Now, she calls Dennis and, with one of his arms in between his sofa, she says, help, right? And Dennis says his penis hardened at the time. Normally, there's this psychological space in infant or child that attachment is supposed to fill, okay, in your heart. But in case of Dennis, it was empty. So, because of the love and attachment, such a distorted excitement filled into this space, that empty space. And like I said before, when it happens early enough, it stays with him for the rest of his life. It's like chick keep following what he or she saw moving first. But I think that was the thing Mr. Dennis called Factor X. It was that women in pain and agony and asking for help, and the situation that I could do anything to her now, kind of thing, that filled into the empty space which love was supposed to fill. And this was Factor X that moved Mr. Dennis into that murderous direction. Okay? I think that feeling came at something which is considered to be unconscious anger towards his mother, who didn't look at him, who didn't pay attention to him when he needed one. It was anger he carried unconsciously because of this negligent mother's attitude toward him. And when he was little, his face looks exactly like a boy who needed love. He was kind of good looking, but gradually, when he entered high school, his eyes became different, much sharper and shrewd and cunning and aggressive. So that male hormone that comes up during puberty already started to kick in. He also had his own murder kit, those tools like Ted Bundy had. There's another thing I have to tell you as one of the special features of Mr. Dennis Rader, which is his obsessive compulsive disorder. I already told you he had to follow certain patterns to do things, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder is like you have to turn certain number of times of the doorknob before you open it, and things like that. Must follow certain rules of his own to feel comfortable doing things. Mr. Rader had such a obsessive compulsive disorder too. You know why some people have such disorder? It also comes from neglect during the infancy. Normally, human communication between mom and kid fill out the time and space of the day, right? But those who do not have mom doing that, they have to do something other than that to fill that space and time. So, depending on the person, they find out something that they can focus on and kill time, which is of interest to themselves. So, such a fixed pattern of how to write letters was a very clear sign of his obsessive compulsive disorder orientation, I think, because it was always so elaborate. It's like it must have taken 3 times more than just write down the message. He spent more time putting drawing the lines and the writing down, drawing the pictures and all the peripheral informations on colors and things like that. So it also showed neglectful childhood he went through in his infancy. If there's one word that represents Dennis Rader perfect, that one word would be control. Perfect control. And such desire happens only to those who could not control their environment when they were little kids. So they could not control their whole environment. They focused on small things that they can control. They have perfect control over, Some people have, let's say, very strict in terms of place they put their things. They are so exact to, hang their clothing in a closet and things like that. That happens because he have this desire to control against what he could not do during his infancy. So, all in all, why did Mr. Dennis need to kill so many people in such deviant, distorted way? Like bind and torture and kill? The answer is because he carried unconscious anger since his infancy toward his mother, who never paid attention back to him when he needed one badly. So he needed to find a target to release all the frustration that stacked up inside since his little childhood. And that was the engine that put all the BTK murderous act into practice. I just like to add a little bit more peripheral information, okay? I might have said this before, but human psychology, the development of human psychology is made like stairs. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you miss, say, number 3, you can never go to number 4. You have to complete number 3. That's the way human psychological development is set up. So, because of the neglect he was under, he is still very immature. He likes drawing, cartoons, and he likes drawing things. And one time he sent me this monster drawing called Tooth Monster. And how did you get the idea to draw this kind of monster from? And his answer was, in my isolation cell at night, because of the angle of the room light, the blanket, kind of sort of formed certain the shade of the blanket sometimes looks like certain things to him. And the other day it looked like Tooth Monster. So I thought it would be nice to draw it and send it to you. That was his answer. And I was kind of appreciative, but at the same time I understood his psychological development was also stopped at certain certain level or step. Okay, and I actually plan to fly over to Kansas to see Mr. Rader, but the deal was his El Dorado prison is a high security prison, and even if I could get there, we could not see each other in person. It's like we use like TV camera, like the phone with the screen, like a FaceTime. So though I am on the campus of El Dorado prison, and though Mr. Rader is somewhere on the same campus, we were physically away and talk to each other looking at the screen. So I kind of did not like the idea, but anyway, I purchased a ticket to Kansas, but the day was kind of a bad day, stormy day, so all kinds of flights were canceled. So mine was canceled too, so I could not fly over to his prison. But I still remember he was so very much looking forward to seeing me. So he sent me all kinds of maps that he would like me to visit around his neighborhood and stuff. And it was so elaborate, so I was very appreciative to what he did to me, you know. It was my genuine feeling, though he did what he did. Okay, this is pretty much about Mr. BTK that I know. I hope I gave you some information that you did not know or you haven't gotten from somewhere else. But he was a very normal person when I talked to him. But, and he called me from his prison to my home in Japan maybe 7 or 8 times. I wanted informative information, but his talk was always about what happened on the day and all those daily reports, which was not informative to me. So maybe it was regrettable, but I somehow showed that to him and he noticed it, and that's the time when he stopped calling me and writing me. But I would like to finish this minute lecture by saying that all those people who are called vicious criminal or thugs, like I call all the thugs who murdered or crossed the line in some way, once they decide their mind, they never back down. They never change their direction. And that's the line that separates the ordinary people and thugs. Thugs, they never change their mind once they decided, because you know what, they are all they all passed the line. They all crossed the line to be death row inmate or lifers. So I would like you to keep this in mind. It's a very big difference between the ordinary, who is so light, and the thugs who never change once they made up their mind. Okay, thank you very much today. I hope you enjoyed my information against my poor English, but I would very much look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, so until then, please have a very wonderful days. Okay, bye bye now.